Hey guys, Alex from Board Game Co. over here, and today we're talking about S.H.E.O.L, a new Kickstarter by Lunar Oak Studio. S.H.E.O.L is a very interesting Kickstarter. It's a very interesting game. I'll do a quick overview, but since I tend to focus more on the value proposition and whether it's a safe back or not, I recommend highly, if you want more details about the game, I recommend very highly two videos, specifically by Jeremy Howard from Man vs. Meeple. He did a great overview, covers the basics of the game, covers how the game plays out, the overview and all that. And then from there, once you've watched that, check out King of Average's video. King of Average did a phenomenal video going through the pros and the cons. Really well done. You don't necessarily have to agree with every one of his points, but his pros and his cons, whether you agree or disagree, will give you a very good idea of whether the gameplay speaks to you. Now again, I'm going to do a brief overview, but I do recommend a deep dive, especially because this one falls very strongly into the it's not a safe back, nor is it a bad back, and I'll get into more into that later. But in terms of the overview, if you want to skip those videos, those other ones I recommended, or if you just want both, S.H.E.O.L is basically it's a tower defense game with a whole bunch of other things mixed in. It has tower defense, it has objectives that you're going to have. Let me scroll down over here to the board. Nope, not the board over there. Here we go. So if you see the board over here on the screen here, you'll see that it's basically got a hex system. It's got that very laid back art, a lack of things going on, similar to Kingdom Death Monster or ANZ Trespass. It has that style of board going on. In this game, more so than the others to me, it kind of makes sense almost, because the whole thing about S.H.E.O.L, something that's a common trend in the whole aspect of the gameplay, the theme, the artwork, all that, is the idea of light and darkness, that you have this outpost, this citadel, that is constantly being overrun by these creatures, by these shadow creatures, that you're going to have to deal with by both illuminating light paths that your guys can go along, as well as using light-based weapons to illuminate the shadows and attack the shadows. And in general, these various shadows in the game, what they're going to do is they're going to be attacking you. They're going to be a threat to you throughout the game. But as you light them up, as you illuminate them, they will become weaker, meaning it's the default shadow that you can't see is more of a threat than the actual creature that you then illuminate. And so you're going to be moving your guys around the board to accomplish objectives while lighting up these pathways that will let you travel, let you experience things, let you get to things and whatnot. And then as well as that, you also have various weapons. And first of all, your characters are unique. They have all these unique abilities that make them really stand out in a very unique way. But additionally, they have all these weapon decks and item decks. Each character is going to have two things they're carrying, both a weapon, a unique item that they can use to attack, as well as a lantern. They have their own lantern that they're going to be using to light the way. Now, this is, like I said, it's at its core, it's tower defense. At its core, you're going to have, if you look at the board on the screen over here, you're going to have swarms of creatures slowly drifting towards these light paths towards the citadel. On each of the four sides of the citadel, you can see it's slightly outlined in red over there. There are these light paths that the creatures are going to gravitate towards, and then from there move directly towards the citadel. And again, ultimately that makes this a tower defense game. Ultimately this makes the creatures hitting your citadel they'll die, but they'll reduce the health of your citadel. So that's the strong overview background of the game. But this is where we get to the tough part. This is where we get to the question of, should you back it? Should you not? Why or why not? Now, like I said already, this is not a safe back. This is not something that falls in the category of you'll get your money back, your money's safe, go ahead and back it here. If you don't like it later, you can turn around and sell it and not lose out. It definitely does not fall into that category, unfortunately. But at the same time, it's also not a clearly bad back. Now, what I mean by that is there's multiple things that I look at when I'm looking at a Kickstarter. There's multiple aspects to a game that I'm judging when I evaluate whether a game is a good back or not. Now, if you've watched my videos before, you know that the whole principle I'm running with here is I like to back a lot of Kickstarters. I do. I back probably around 2 a month on average, some more on bigger months, then I'll occasionally get a few months without something. And that's an expensive hobby to be in. But the way I justify that, the way I can keep doing that without having to cost an arm and a leg, is I evaluate which Kickstarters I'll get to see my money back on. Which Kickstarters will I be able to basically turn around and recoup my money if I don't like it. Because for every Kickstarter game that I keep and that I love, and there are many that I keep and love, for every one that I keep, there's a good 2, 3, maybe even 4 that I either get rid of right away or over time as newer, brighter, shinier things come in. So I like this hobby and I like spending money in it, but I like to know that I'm not acting just incredibly irresponsibly or responsibly based on the money I want to spend or whatnot. So yeah, so I look for that value proposition when I'm backing games. Now, some of the things I look for, the easiest and first thing you can look for is, does this company have a track record of producing games that are well sought after? Is this CMON? Is this Tainted Grail? Is it Awakened Realms? Is it too many chip theory games? There are a variety of companies out there that have a clear established track record of producing games that hold their value. And while it's not a guarantee, it's usually a good rule of thumb that those companies will continue to produce games that will be well sought after, and you can turn around and sell them if you don't like them. The second thing you want to look for is and this is a big one, and this is really where S.H.E.O.L fails. I mean, S.H.E.O.L unfortunately fails that first one, where they are a first-time publisher, so there is no track record here that you can look on. There's no, I mean, I assume, based on the fact that they're asking for a lot of money. They're asking for $300K, and they're doing that based on the fact that it's a realistic funding goal. It's a funding goal that they actually need to produce the game. So because of that, if they make that funding goal, it is less likely that they'll run into funding hiccups. It's less likely that they will have issues with production and issues with being able to get the job done properly. At the same time, keep in mind it's not a guarantee. That's just a likelihood thing. But so S.H.E.O.L unfortunately fails that track record test in terms of the value aspect there. The second thing you want to look at, and this one S.H.E.O.L also fails at unfortunately, is the sheer amount of content you get for what you're spending. Now take the pledge levels. This is a good time to cover the pledge levels here. The basic pledge level over here. So first of all, by the way, offhand, if I recall correctly, they have access to the pledge manager at $4, not at $1. So keep that in mind. It's going to take a little bit more to get access to the pledge manager on this one. The second thing is they have an £89, £89, but they have a $97 pledge level for the core pledge, which covers all the base game content. It covers the 4 miniatures for your main guys. It does not cover all these other miniatures. It does not cover the Citadel miniature. It does not cover the extra big bads, or even just the regular swarm tokens. So it covers just the 4 basic miniatures that your heroes are playing. And then the next pledge level, the all-in effectively, is, I don't know if it's an all-in, I shouldn't say that. The next pledge level is the Scout pledge, which for $140 plus around another $30 shipping, so $170 cost, you're getting everything you see here. Miniatures, cards, tokens, every single thing here. That's a lot of money. A lot of money considering what they are giving you here. Take a look at S.H.E.L. I just covered. I'll link to it up above. But S.H.E.L just had a Kickstarter coming out, and look at the sheer amount of content they are giving you for roughly, I think, with shipping, roughly $160. So another $10 less than this one, less than S.H.E.O.L, and the sheer amount of content is so much more. So S.H.E.O.L unfortunately fails that content test in terms of the amount of game you're getting for what you spend. If you compare S.H.E.O.L to Descent, if you compare S.H.E.O.L to a regular Euro game, if you compare it to anything in its ballpark, I mean, compare it to a Zombicide game, they're giving you the same amount of miniatures as a retail edition of CMON. They're giving you the same amount of production as a retail edition of a CMON game for twice the price. So unfortunately, S.H.E.O.L very much fails the sheer amount of content you get for your price, and that's a second big thing that I look for when determining the reward you're getting, whether it's worth it, whether a game is likely to hold its value. Because ultimately, the third thing, and this is the one that's problematic, this is one that you can't know. The third thing is, if it fails the track record, if it fails the content for the price, the third thing a game is you want to judge a game by is if it's good. If it's good and this is a big and, if it's good and if it's not cheaper later. If a game goes to retail for less than the price, it's not going to hold its Kickstarter value if you're getting the same amount of content for retail. So I don't believe S.H.E.O.L, I don't know what, I shouldn't say that, I don't know what S.H.E.O.L's retail plans are, so I can't comment on that. But if the game is good enough, then even a game with not enough, again, there are certain examples. I mean, Chip Theory Games is a good example of this. Chip Theory Games often gives you less content than I would imagine given the price point involved. But because you can't get their games cheaper elsewhere, and because their games are in high demand, and because the games are so good, it doesn't matter. Which means a game can not have the content to price ratio that you would ideally be looking for, but if it's good enough, it will still hold its value. Which means S.H.E.O.L unfortunately falls into that category, which we've had a few of here and there. They tend to be a little rare, but they do happen. It's that category of a game that will hold its value purely based on how good it is. This happened with Uthia, which I did another video I did recently. I'll try to link that up above as well. Uthia was another one that I felt the price to content ratio was a little bit lacking. Not nearly as bad as S.H.E.O.L honestly, but it was a little bit lacking, and that means it really will come down to how good the game is. If the game is good and if you can't get it elsewhere and you can't get it cheaper, then it will hold its value. So Sheol is in that line. It's a big question at this point, and ultimately, for you to back it now is really just a question of how much do you believe in the game? Does it call to you? Does it speak to you on a personal level? Are you interested in the gameplay? Because it really is a risk. It doesn't mean it's a bad back. It's not one of those things where I say, oh, this will be $20 cheaper at retail. There's no reason to back it now. That's not necessarily true. This may be your only opportunity to get it, or if it really is good, it may be more expensive later on the secondary market. I mean, take a look at games like Elo Darkness that have a small but loyal fan following, or even games like The Hunters, which you talked about, or the Guards of Atlantis. There are certain games that don't have the massive audiences that other games find, but if they're good enough, they do get people who are willing to pay for them after the fact. So Sheol is very much an unknown. Speaking for myself, for my own opinion and all that and what I am doing with this, Sheol is a game that did not call to me initially. I love some of the aspects of the game art-wise. I dislike others. I love the heroes that very reminiscent over here. If you look at these heroes, very reminiscent of BioShock, one of my favorite PC games ever. So I love that offhand. I'm not such a fan of the whole darkness thing going on and the lack of any visibility going on there. I'm not a fan of the monster miniatures. And gameplay-wise, I didn't think I would be interested in this. I didn't know anything about it, to be clear. Before this Kickstarter launched, I didn't know enough about it. I didn't do any pre-researching, and I didn't know if I'd be interested, but then after looking into it, after checking it out, it really does speak to me. It's a tower defense game, and I love tower defense games. The style of play, which is almost more puzzly than combat, which could be a turnoff for some, but I actually like that. I like in Chip Theory and Too Many Bones when I'm puzzling things out. It feels like a puzzle. It feels like, how can I optimize around this to win? So I am very much on the fence myself. In terms of, so I guess that's the conclusion, effectively. I do not think it's a safe back. I do not think it's a bad back. It's going to be a hard one here. This falls in that unknown category. For myself, what I am doing is I am keeping an eye on this campaign for the next 25 days. We have 25 days left to see what will happen. It's very possible to fund as well. I mean, right now, it's got 10K today compared to yesterday. And that's, if we get 10K a day for 25 days, it will hit its funding goal. So all those people who are worried about the funding, I think it is on track to fund, but barely. It's going to be close. And I plan on monitoring the campaign throughout the next 25 days to see what else is added. What is that value proposition going to look like? I mean, what I would say to the creators of Sheol is if you have more things to show, now is a good time to show them. Try to give people a heads up, because this is not seeing the funding goals that people want. This is not seeing the traction that people want. And it could be showing people that much more content that is already pre-baked into pre-established stretch goals. That could be enough to push them over the edge. That's my 2 cents. That's my opinion. As usual, I do multiple videos on different Kickstarter things. In my next Kickstarter roundups, if at any point I make a firm decision to back or not to back, I will of course let you guys know. Until next time, I'm Alex from Board Game Co. If you like this video, if you found it helpful, and I know it's not that helpful because I'm telling you it's a big giant maybe, but it is a big giant maybe. There's only so much I can do with that. But again, if you like this stuff, go ahead and subscribe down below. Ring the bell for notifications. Like, comment, engage. Let me know if you're backing and why. Why? What is it about the game that's calling to you? And why are you one of these 1,257 people who are currently backing? And what can you say to others to convince them to get in on this? These guys have clearly put a lot of time and energy into the game. It looks like it could be amazing. It's just a question of getting enough people to believe in that vision and to jump in on it. Until next time, I'm Alex. Have a good one.